Asking me about what do I think about the Russian influences in the during the elections and what's going on with Trump and the Russians. I don't have quite that information confirmed. I don't investigate, Mr. Trump. I only know what the media is saying, and apparently there's some indicators that yeah, there's something going on with the Russians. But I'm not going to attack Mr. Trump. I'm not going to hurt the feelings of his supporters. Basically, because I don't follow any political party. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm a Buddhist, and that's all I am. But I do have an opinion, especially when it comes to the Russians. I'm going to tell you a little bit of history in my country and how the Russians play a key role on the disastrous consequences that their influences had in my country. Back in 1991, when the communist bloc crumbled, Cuba went through a serious social crisis, economic hardship, and Cuba had no trade. Basically, our economy was 0.01%. That means nothing. The entire country came to a stop. Why? The Russians were having their ways in my island. Castro always said that Cuba was an independent country. That was a lie. We all knew that he was surviving thanks to the Russians. But that came with a price. And the price was the manipulation of the Russians, of the Cuban government. They told Castro, or manipulated Castro into things as to how to rule the country in ways that they could control the economy, they could control different things, political things, the economy of the island. Cuba was increasingly dependent of the Russian trade and military aid. And after 1991, when the communist bloc crumbled, we were alone. Russia found it very difficult to meet their economic responsibility toward the island. And our people suffered the consequences of that. People got sick. There were things like this terrible experience that we call the special period in times of peace. There were things like people were planting things in the backyard. There was this idea of having a big pod per block in the city, and once a day, people will gather around that pot and will cook a soup, and that's what we want to eat. Until the Cuban government or the country was strong enough to support itself, because after the fall of the communist bloc, he was thinking about developing the island. He was delusional, and he said that was the people's idea. That was not our idea. We wanted a better country, and if that meant for the government to make reforms and change the system in the country, that's what we wanted. But when you have a dictatorship, and it's what I think, and it's what I believe, if not, you go to jail or you go to firing squad. Well, that's what a dictatorship is, a regime is. That's what a regime is. Some Republicans, not all Republicans, but some Republicans uh, uh, label Obama as a dictator and his administration as a regime. I invite you and all of those Republicans that are saying that, I invite them to come to my country. Come to Cuba. But don't come as a tourist. No, 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 no. I want you to resign to your American citizenship. Give it up. And get a Cuban one. And go to live like a regular Cuban in some of this little town in Havana. Or go to North Korea. Give up your American citizenship and go to live in North Korea as a North Korean. And you want to tell me, when you see that you don't have freedom of speech, that you cannot go to the internet because they're going to fine you, or you can end up in jail, that you cannot make an international phone call with your own cell phone that you are paying for because it's against the law, that you cannot buy your own car, the car you like, simply because you cannot. They don't want you to do that. When you see that you cannot, save up your money and go to visit Brazil for the Carnival of Rio de Janeiro, when you see that you cannot do normal things, you cannot go to the market and buy eggs and buy bread or milk because it's not your day to buy them. You have a ration book. You have to go by the ration book. When you find that when you realize that that's not enough for you to eat the whole month, and you have to go to the black market, and if you get caught, you get in trouble. Then you want to tell me whether America is a dictatorship or a regime, as some of these Republicans label it. They don't know what they're talking about. They do not know what they're talking about. You, with your own money, can plan a trip to Disney World. If you have the money and the time to do that. With your own money, you can buy your computer. It's as simple as that. Or you can apply for a cell phone with Verizon or whatever. Try to do it in my country. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Private property in my country all belongs to the government. Everything belongs to the government. Same thing in North Korea. And I'm giving you those two examples because those are very, very communist countries. Or at least they have a regime, a dictatorship, a proven dictatorship. You're telling me that Obama is a dictator and it's the Obama regime. You don't know what you're talking about. For you to understand what a communist regime is, you need to come to my country or North Korea. Then you will understand. And you will enlighten your knowledge better. Therefore, if it's true that Mr. Trump is having dealings with the Russians, I invite him to check the history of my country and the dealings between Castro and the Russians and the consequences of that. And then, I invite him to make a better judgment. If it's true that Mr. Trump is having dealings with the Russians and the Russians are playing a hand on the political events in the United States, because that's not good. That's not good. And I don't believe everything that the media says. The media is like gambling. If you don't watch the media, you are misinformed. But if you watch it, probably 90% out of 100, you are misinformed. I'm going to quote Denzel Washington. He says that when you practice something many times or through all your life, you are an expert of whatever it is that you're practicing, including giving people BS. And that's what the media is. And that's absolutely right. But let's not forget that the media that we all criticize at times, that Mr. Trump criticized, he called the media biased and all that kind of stuff, is the same media that got him elected. Why? Because he manipulated it. I think of Mr. Trump as with all due respect, as a political showman. His everything he did during his race for the White House was a show. A show. I remember in the beginning of his campaign when he was, going for the White House. I thought it was a joke. I really thought it was a joke. But then it became serious. Well, I hope that he seriously takes on the White House with honor, with respect, and sense of responsibility, because you are ruling you are ruling the government in North America. That is a huge responsibility. You cannot run a government as a private company. It's not going to work. So, this being said, like I said, and I will repeat this again, if it's true that Mr. Trump has dealing with the Russians, I will be very careful. I will be very, very careful, with them, because they are master manipulators. And I said before, and I will always say this, Mr. Trump has no experience in international politics. And a person like that is very, very easy to manipulate. Unless that he is surrounded by experts and advisors that can see beyond what's presented to them in a table, I will invite Mr. Trump to be very careful. And that's all I have to say about the matter. Like I said, I don't have all the facts. I don't know if it's true or not. There are indicators out there that indicates that, yeah, he having dealing with the Russians, or the Russians are playing a role behind the scene in the American political events. Well, if it's true, we have to be very careful with that, because we don't want these events to happen in America. We don't want what happened in Cuba. We don't want that to happen in America.